morning, everyone. Have you ever felt the cold grip of fear? That pounding heart, the tightening chest, the whisper in your mind telling you you can't? What if I told you that fear, the very thing you avoid, holds the key to unlocking the life you've always wanted? Fear isn't your enemy, it's your compass, it's your fuel. And today I'm going to show you how to take that fear and use it to ignite a fire that won't just burn, but will forge you into the strongest version of yourself. I want you to imagine this. You're standing at the edge of a cliff, the wind howling, the drop terrifying. The choice is yours. Step back into safety or step forward into growth. Fear is the voice urging you to step back. But what if you could silence that voice? What if you could reprogram your mind to see that cliff not as a danger, but as a doorway to greatness? Stay with me because this isn't just another motivational talk. By the time we're done, you won't just feel inspired, you'll feel unstoppable. Here's why you must lean in. Fear doesn't mean failure, it means focus. It doesn't mean weakness, it means wisdom. And most importantly, it doesn't mean stop, it means go. Let's break it down and rebuild your relationship with fear, starting right here, right now. Are you ready? Because it's time to harness fear and unleash the best version of you. Fear is a friend, not an enemy. It's a concept that challenges everything we've been conditioned to believe. From an early age, we're taught that fear is something to avoid, something negative, something to conquer and eradicate. But here's the truth. Fear isn't the problem. The way we perceive it is. Fear is a survival instinct hardwired into us to keep us safe. It's the rush you feel when you sense danger, the heightened awareness when faced with the unknown. It's your body and mind working together to alert you that something important is at stake. And yet, instead of acknowledging this gift, we treat it like a curse. We run from it, suppress it, and in doing so, we miss the incredible opportunities it presents. Think of fear as a signal, a bright flashing light pointing you toward growth. When you're afraid, it means you're stepping into territory that matters. It means you're pushing your limits, testing your capabilities, and moving beyond the predictable comfort zone you've built around yourself. Fear doesn't show up when you're doing something easy or meaningless. It appears when you're on the brink of something transformative. The key to making fear your friend is simple but profound. Stop fighting it. Instead, lean into it. Start by acknowledging it without judgment. Say to yourself, yes, I'm scared, but that's okay. This act of acceptance takes away its power to control you. It turns fear from an obstacle into a tool. Now, think about the last time you felt fear. Maybe it was standing in front of a crowd, making a life-changing decision, or stepping into an unknown situation. What happened when you leaned into that fear instead of running from it? Chances are it propelled you forward. It made you sharper, more focused, more alive. That's because fear has a way of unlocking hidden reserves of strength and determination. When you see fear as a friend, you stop asking, how can I get rid of it? And start asking, what is it trying to teach me? Fear teaches us to prepare, to plan, and to persevere. It forces us to confront our weaknesses and transform them into strengths. It shows us where our true potential lies. This doesn't mean fear won't be uncomfortable, it will, but discomfort is the price of growth. Every time you embrace fear and move through it, you expand your boundaries, you redefine what's possible for yourself. So instead of fearing fear, start respecting it, let it guide you, let it challenge you, and most importantly, let it shape you into the person you're meant to be. Fear isn't there to break you, it's there to build you. Recognize it for what it truly is, a friend who's always by your side, urging you to become your best self. The power of controlled fear lies in its ability to transform what many perceive as a paralyzing emotion into a driving force for action. Fear, in its raw state, can freeze us in our tracks, making us doubt our abilities and question our next steps. But when fear is controlled, when it is harnessed and channeled, it becomes one of the most powerful motivators you will ever experience. Controlled fear is not about eliminating fear or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about mastering it. Think of it like fire. Left unchecked, fire can destroy everything in its path, but when contained and directed, can cook your food, warm your home, and even power entire cities. Fear operates in much the same way. If you let it run rampant, it consumes you. But if you learn to control it, it becomes a tool, one that can fuel your determination and sharpen your focus. The first step in controlling fear is recognizing that it's not your enemy. Fear is an instinctive reaction designed to keep you safe. It's your body's way of saying, pay attention, something important's happening here. Instead of resisting that signal, acknowledge it, accept that fear is present, and rather than letting it dictate your actions, choose how you'll respond. Controlled fear sharpens your senses. It heightens your awareness and brings you into the present moment. When fear courses through your veins, it forces you to focus on what truly matters. Think about moments of high stakes, an important presentation, a critical decision, or a life or death situation. In those moments, fear can make you laser focused. Your mind stops wandering, distractions fade, and all your energy is channeled into the task at hand. But controlling fear also requires practice. It's not enough to tell yourself, I won't let fear control me. You have to actively work at it. Controlled fear demands that you step into uncomfortable situations repeatedly. It requires exposure to what you fear most until you learn that fear doesn't have to own you. With each experience, you build resilience. You prove to yourself that fear doesn't break you, it makes you stronger. Another key to controlling fear is perspective. Often, fear feels overwhelming because we let it take up too much mental space. But when you break it down, when you dissect the source of your fear, it becomes more manageable. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? Most of the time, you'll realize the fear is far larger in your mind than it is in reality. Controlled fear also thrives on preparation. When you prepare, you reduce the unknowns, the breeding ground for fear. Whether it's rehearsing a speech, studying for an exam, or visualizing success, preparation gives you a sense of control over the situation. It turns fear from something unpredictable into something you can face head on. Ultimately, the power of controlled fear lies in its ability to push you forward when you might otherwise hold back. It's a force that reminds you of your potential and demands that you rise to the occasion. Controlled fear doesn't hinder you, it propels you toward greatness. The truth about comfort zones is that they are the most deceptively dangerous places we can inhabit. On the surface, they feel safe, predictable, and even satisfying. They offer a sense of control and familiarity that we naturally gravitate toward. But beneath that illusion lies the reality. Comfort zones are traps, keeping us stagnant and limiting our potential. They are the invisible walls we build around ourselves, walls that shield us from risk, but also block the path to growth. Comfort zones exist because our minds crave stability. They are a natural mechanism designed to keep us from venturing into the unknown, where uncertainty and failure might lurk. And while this might seem like a way to protect ourselves, it's often just a way to avoid discomfort. But here's the hard truth. No one ever achieved greatness by staying comfortable. Growth and comfort cannot coexist. When you choose to remain in your comfort zone, you miss out on the opportunities that come with challenging yourself. The world beyond those walls is where the magic happens, where you learn new skills, discover untapped strengths, and uncover your true potential. Every meaningful accomplishment, every significant breakthrough requires stepping into discomfort and embracing the unknown. Think of a seed planted in the ground. It's buried in the dark, surrounded by pressure, and yet, under those conditions, it begins to grow. It pushes through the soil, reaching for the sunlight. The seed's transformation doesn't happen in ideal conditions. It happens in challenging ones. We are no different. Our greatest growth happens when we step out the familiar and into the challenging. Breaking out of your comfort zone isn't about leaping blindly into chaos. It's about taking calculated steps that stretch you without overwhelming you. It starts with acknowledging that the fear you feel isn't a stop sign. It's a green light. It's the signal that you're on the verge of something worthwhile. Fear is an indicator that you're about to grow, not fail. The beauty of stepping out your comfort zone is that it builds momentum. The first step might feel terrifying, but once you take it, you prove to yourself that you're capable of handling more than you thought. Each step becomes easier, and before you know it, what was once uncomfortable becomes your new normal. This is how you expand your limits, how you redefine what you're capable of. The truth is, comfort zones don't just limit your potential, they erode it. Staying comfortable means missing out on the thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of overcoming challenges, and the pride that comes with personal growth. It means settling for a version of yourself that's far smaller than what you're meant to be. So the next time you feel tempted to stay in the safety of your comfort zone, ask yourself this: do I want to live a life of safety or a life of significance? Because significance requires risk. It requires you to step out, to face discomfort, and to grow through the process. Comfort zones are the enemy of progress, and the only way to escape their trap is to dare to move beyond them. Learning to dance with danger is not about recklessness or seeking out peril for the thrill of it. It's about recognizing that life's most significant opportunities often lie on the other side of fear and uncertainty. Danger, both real and perceived, isn't something to avoid, it's something to approach with respect, strategy, and courage. When you learn to move with danger rather than against it, you unlock a power within yourself that is transformative. Down Danger comes in many forms. It might be the risk of failure, the fear of rejection, or the uncertainty of stepping into unfamiliar territory. Whatever form it takes, it triggers our instincts to protect ourselves, to retreat to safety, to avoid the potential for harm. But here's the paradox: the very things we fear most are often the gateways to the experiences and achievements that matter most. Dancing with danger requires a mindset shift. It starts with acknowledging that fear and risk are inevitable parts of any meaningful journey. There's no growth without challenge, no success without setbacks, and no reward without risk. The key is not to eliminate danger, but to navigate it skillfully. It's about stepping into the arena, even when the outcome is uncertain, and trusting that you have what it takes to adapt and overcome. To dance with danger is to cultivate a relationship with the unknown. It's about seeing uncertainty not as a threat, but as an adventure. Danger, when approached with preparation and perspective, sharpens you. It forces you to think critically, act decisively, and dig deep into your reservoir of resilience. It's in those moments of heightened awareness, when the stakes are high, that you discover your true capabilities. One of the most empowering realizations is that danger often appears larger in our minds than it is in reality. The fear of failure, for example, can paralyze us, but when we confront it, we realize that failure isn't fatal, it's a stepping stone. Similarly, the risks we dread often turn out to be manageable when we break them down and approach them with a plan. Danger isn't an immovable mountain, it's a challenge waiting to be tackled. Dancing with danger also means embracing vulnerability. It's about putting yourself out there, knowing that you might stumble, but also knowing that every stumble is a lesson. It's about understanding that the discomfort of facing danger is temporary, but the growth it brings is lasting. Vulnerability is not a weakness, it's a strength that allows you to engage fully with life. Ultimately, learning to dance with danger is about reclaiming your power. It's about choosing action over avoidance, courage over complacency, and progress over stagnation. When you learn to move gracefully with danger, you stop fearing it and start using it as a catalyst for transformation. Life is full of risks, but the greatest risk of all is standing still. The dance with danger is where life happens. It's where you find purpose, passion, and possibility. So step onto the floor, embrace the challenge, and let danger guide you to your next breakthrough. Fear, when properly harnessed, becomes a powerful weapon for success. It's easy to think of fear as something that holds us back, an obstacle that limits our potential. But in reality, fear, when understood and controlled, is an untapped source of strength. It sharpens focus, fuels motivation, and drives action when nothing else will. The key is recognizing that fear doesn't have to paralyze you. It can propel you forward, helping you achieve things you never thought possible. When you're afraid, your body goes into a heightened state of alertness. Your senses are sharper, your mind more focused. Fear forces you to pay attention to the task at hand, making you less likely to overlook details or get distracted. This intensity can be the difference between success and failure, particularly in high pressure situations where every decision counts. Rather than trying to quiet your fear, embrace it and allow it to enhance your performance. Fear can push you to perform at your best, tapping into reserves of energy and focus that you might not have accessed otherwise. The key to turning fear into a weapon lies in your response to it. The natural instinct when faced with fear is often to retreat, to avoid the uncomfortable or risky situations that trigger those emotions. But true success comes when you choose to face fear head on. Instead of allowing it to make you freeze or back away, use it as fuel to drive you toward your goal. Fear can provide the motivation you need to prepare more thoroughly, push harder, and keep going when others might give up. When fear shows up, it's not a sign to stop. It's a sign to lean into the challenge and to see it through. Fear also helps us make better decisions. When we're not afraid, we tend to become complacent, making choices based on convenience or comfort rather than on what will truly move us forward. Fear forces us to consider the consequences of our actions more carefully, to weigh our options and plan our next steps with more precision. It forces us to anticipate potential obstacles and setbacks, allowing us to be more strategic and prepared for what's ahead. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of fear is its ability to push us out of our comfort zones. Success rarely comes from staying within the boundaries of what we already know and are comfortable with. It comes from stepping into the unknown, from pushing past our limits and taking risks. Fear is often the indicator that we're on the edge of something significant, that we're about to break through to the next level. Instead of viewing it as a roadblock, view it as a signpost pointing toward opportunity. Ultimately, fear isn't something to fight against, it's something to use. It's a tool, a weapon that, when properly wielded, can enhance your performance, sharpen your focus, and fuel your progress. The more you learn to harness fear, the more you unlock your potential. Fear is not something to avoid, it's something to embrace and transform into the driving force that propels you towards success. When you can do that, fear becomes your greatest ally, not your greatest enemy. Fear is often seen as a barrier, something to be avoided or conquered, but the truth is, fear is the final frontier, a threshold that once crossed can unlock our full potential. True courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the ability to move forward in spite of it. In fact, the most extraordinary individuals are not those who live without fear, but those who learn to master it. The key is not to eliminate fear, but to make peace with it, to step into it and use it as a driving force for personal transformation and achievement. When you view fear as the final frontier, it becomes a gateway rather than a wall. Each time you face your fear, you push past a boundary. Every time you confront something that intimidates you, you break through an invisible limit that once held you back. Fear often appears as the thing standing between you and your dreams, but when you embrace it, you realize it's the very thing that moves you toward them. Fear challenges you to expand beyond what you know, to evolve and to tap into a greater version of yourself. The real power of fear comes from learning to live with it rather than in spite of it. Every time we encounter fear, we have two choices. We can retreat and stay where we are, or we can move forward, accepting the discomfort and risk. Most people avoid fear because it represents the unknown, the unpredictable, the possibility of failure. But in avoiding fear, we avoid the growth that only comes from pushing into unfamiliar territory. Fear isn't just something that stops us, it's a sign that we're on the cusp of something meaningful, something that's worth pursuing. The final frontier of fear is also about understanding the limits we impose on ourselves. Many of us create mental barriers long before any external challenges arise. We imagine that we're not capable of certain things, or that we're too inexperienced, or that the risks are too high. But when we finally step past that fear, we often find that our true potential was waiting for us all along. The limitations we thought we had were far more malleable than we realized. And when we push past them, we see just how much more we are capable of. Fear also brings clarity. In those moments when you feel afraid, when you stand at the edge of a decision or action, fear forces you to ask, what do I really want? What am I willing to risk? It forces you to examine your goals and your values more closely, helping you focus on what truly matters. In the midst of fear, we often find our deepest motivations and our truest desires. The discomfort of fear is what brings these to the surface, pushing you to pursue them with greater intensity. Lastly, fear is a reminder that you are alive. It's easy to fall into complacency when everything feels safe and predictable, but it's in the moments of fear that you feel the pulse of life, the rush of adrenaline, the sharpness of awareness, the exhilaration of taking a leap. Fear forces you to engage with life at a deeper level. It keeps you connected to the present moment and the possibilities that exist just outside your comfort zone. The final frontier is not about being fearless. It's about being willing to confront fear with courage, understanding that it's a necessary companion on the path to growth. Fear is the bridge between who you are and who you're meant to become. So instead of avoiding it, embrace it, because it's through fear that you'll find your greatest strength and unlock your highest potential.